At stake is not just the future of Ukraine, it is an existential question for Europe as a whole, and therefore vital for Britain's national interest. This is a once-in-a-generation moment for the collective security of our continent. Only a lasting peace in Ukraine that safeguards its sovereignty will deter Putin from further aggression in the future. Now, recent statements by the US administration should not come.
Starmer guilty. Starmer shocks the public with his recent confessions during interview. Tomorrow, an event will unfold that could drastically alter the future of Britain. While much of the media has focused on the sensational news of a Ukrainian national's arrest in connection with an alleged arson at the Prime Minister's property, a far more critical issue is being swept under the rug. This is the potential betrayal of Britain by Keir Starmer and his plans regarding our relationship with the European Union. It's no secret that the Labour leader has always been a fervent pro-European. After all, his career is steeped in pro-EU rhetoric, and despite his claims to respect the Brexit vote, many suspect that his real agenda is to quietly undo the result of the 2016 referendum. He, like other prominent figures of the left and Remainers in general, has argued that the Brexit we've experienced is not the real Brexit, suggesting that it has led to disaster. However, if we had indeed received the true Brexit that was promised, it would not have been the catastrophe they describe. The referendum result was clear, and yet it appears that those in power were not prepared for the outcome, opting instead to work tirelessly to bring us back into the EU fold. Over the last few years, now May 19th, a seemingly innocuous date looms large. On this day, Starmer is set to sign an agreement that could drastically compromise the sovereignty of our military forces, intelligence agencies, and overall defense capabilities. This agreement, which has largely gone under the radar, is expected to initiate Britain's deeper integration into European military structures, effectively handing control of our armed forces over to Brussels. Such an action raises significant questions about Britain's autonomy and its ability to defend itself in times of crisis. With our military already facing challenges in terms of manpower and resources, this decision could exacerbate our vulnerabilities, leaving us less able to safeguard our interests. Why has this happened? Why has the strength of our military been hollowed out over the years? This question becomes even more pressing when one considers the gravity of the decision set to unfold tomorrow. Over a month ago, I warned on my Rumble channel that Starmer's agenda would lead to the UK's military becoming subordinated to a European body. And that's precisely what will happen. The European cooperation on military matters would represent an unprecedented handover of British sovereignty. Is this an act of treason or simply a monumental mistake? Regardless of the answer, it is undeniable that it would be an act of extraordinary foolishness. Britain has long stood as an independent nation, and the idea of submitting control over its defense to a foreign political body should raise alarm bells across the country. National sovereignty has been the bedrock of the UK's identity for centuries, and now Starmer seems intent on eroding that. We fought for Brexit precisely to avoid such entanglements with a political union that would dictate our decisions from Brussels, but the military is just one area of concern. The broader implications of this shift could extend to our fishing rights, freedom of movement, and many other areas that were core issues during the Brexit referendum. Already, there are discussions about giving up control of our fishing waters, allowing foreign nations unrestricted access to our resources. In addition, proposals suggest that there may be further concessions on freedom of movement, including allowing thousands of individuals under the age of 35 to come and go without restrictions. These are the very same issues that fueled Brexit in the first place, and it seems that Starmer is determined to undo everything we fought for me, as someone who voted for Brexit and would do so again. This is an unacceptable development. The notion that England should hand over political control to a foreign body, particularly one that has proven so dysfunctional over the years, is deeply troubling. I have no interest in seeing my country's future decided by a group of unelected bureaucrats in Brussels. The relationship we should seek with European nations is one based on mutual respect and trade, not on subjugat. I don't dot in a recent video. Ben Habib made an important point at 11 minutes and 50 seconds, stating, "The Acts of Union no longer apply." This comment is crucial in understanding the ramifications of what is happening now. The Acts of Union, which have bound the United Kingdom together since the 18th century, are foundational to our identity as a nation. But today, we are facing the reality that these unions are being undermined by those who would see Britain subsumed into a European superstate. The danger lies in the quiet way these changes are being introduced. With each new agreement, each new compromise, we lose a little more of what makes us British. We are allowing our rights to be chipped away in a backroom deal, all while the public remains largely unaware of the extent of the threat. So, what's the solution? Should we continue to exist as a cooperative or commonwealth of nations within the British Isles? Perhaps, but the answer lies in reclaiming our sovereignty first and foremost over our military, our resources, and our identity as an independent nation. Tomorrow is a pivotal moment for the UK. We need to ask ourselves, do we want to continue on this path of submission, or do we stand up and defend the rights and freedoms we fought so hard to secure? If we allow this to happen, we risk dragging future generations into a future they never signed up for. The stakes are incredibly high, and the time to act is now. Let your voices be heard. As we approach May 19th, the consequences of Keir Starmer's actions could echo for generations to come. We are at a crossroads where we must decide whether to preserve the sovereignty we fought for through Brexit, or whether we are willing to surrender it piece by piece to a European entity. The decisions made tomorrow regarding our military, defense, and national sovereignty will set a precedent for how Britain interacts with the rest of the world. The question on many people's minds is, how did we get here? After Brexit, we were promised that Britain would regain full control over its borders, laws, and governance. However, what we are now seeing is a subtle, yet effective, campaign to reverse these gains. The Labour Party, under Starmer's leadership, has been pushing for closer alignment with the European Union in ways that directly contradict the will of the people as expressed in the 2016 referendum. While Starmer may try to present his moves as pragmatic, they are nothing short of a betrayal of the principles that Brexit was founded on. What is particularly troubling is the manner in which these changes are being enacted. Much like the backdoor deals that led to Britain's entanglement in the European Union in the first place, Starmer's actions seem designed to avoid public scrutiny. The mainstream media, instead of covering the importance of the upcoming summit and the potential ramifications of Britain's military integration into Europe, has been preoccupied with trivial issues that distract from the real dangers at play. This strategy of misdirection is nothing new. When the media focuses on sensational stories, the real story often goes unnoticed. In this case, the truth is that the Labour Party is moving toward re-establishing ties with the European Union in a way that could undermine our independence and military strength, whether it's through the European cooperation on military matters or other initiatives. The plan seems to be slowly but surely moving Britain closer to the European fold. The military implications of this are perhaps the most concerning. Britain's defense capabilities are already under strain, with our armed forces facing recruitment shortfalls and a lack of resources. If Starmer's plan goes forward, Britain could find itself in a situation where its military is no longer under national control. This would mean that in times of crisis, decisions about our defense would no longer be made by British leaders, but by a foreign body. How can we expect our leaders to defend our interests when they no longer have full control over our defense systems? This is not merely a matter of military power. It's a matter of national pride and identity. For centuries, Britain has stood as an independent nation, respected for its military prowess and its ability to defend its own interests. Handing that power over to a European body is a direct challenge to the very essence of what it means to be British. We cannot allow our military to become another cog in a European machine that does not have our best interests at heart. In addition to the military concerns, there are the broader implications of these moves. The issues that were central to the Brexit debate, immigration, fishing rights, and sovereignty, are once again being called into question. By signing up to agreements that limit our control over our resources and borders, Starmer is putting Britain in a position where we may once again be subject to EU regulations and decisions that we have no say in. This would undo the very reasons why so many voted for Brexit in the first place. The future of our country is at stake. If we allow this to happen, we will not only be giving up our military sovereignty, but also our ability to make decisions independently of Brussels. The EU has a long history of meddling in the affairs of its member states, and Britain's return to the EU's sphere of influence would be disastrous. This is not about cooperation with our European neighbors. It's about losing control of our own destiny. Tomorrow, as Starmer prepares to sign away our sovereignty, we must ask ourselves whether we are willing to let this happen. We must consider what kind of Britain we want to leave behind for future. Some will say this is necessary, that cooperation is the only way to survive in an increasingly unstable world. But cooperation does not require capitulation. We can stand shoulder to shoulder with our allies without surrendering our sword. Britain has always led best when leading on its own terms through NATO, through the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance, through our own diplomacy and defense networks. There is no need to dilute our command or compromise our constitutional sovereignty in order to collaborate if we agree to this deal without a referendum or at least a full parliamentary debate. Then the message to politicians across the spectrum is clear. They can ignore us. They can reverse national decisions in boardrooms and backroom summits, bypassing the voters entirely. That should terrify anyone who believes in democratic accountability, regardless of where they stand on Brexit. This betrayal, if it occurs, will be cloaked in the language of unity, security, and responsibility. But unity without choice is control. Security without sovereignty is servitude. And responsibility without consultation is tyranny by another name. Many will wake up the next morning and carry on as if nothing happened. There won't be tanks on the streets or EU flags suddenly flying from every barracks. But the shift will have occurred all the same. Quiet, technical, legalistic, but no less real, and that's exactly how liberty is lost, not in a blaze, but in a series of forgotten signatures, unspoken concessions, and distracted silence. If you value your country's ability to make its own choices, to defend itself, to govern its own people, then now is the time to pay attention. This isn't about party politics. This isn't about left or right. This is about national identity. It's about the principle that only the British people should decide how Britain is run, how it defends itself, and what path it follows into. The future, Starmer's plan, is being presented as inevitable, even uncontroversial. But nothing about surrendering your military autonomy to a foreign institution should ever be accepted as normal. We must demand transparency. We must demand debate. And above all, we must demand consent, because if we don't, then what happens tomorrow will not just be a betrayal of the Brexit vote. It will be a betrayal of every principle on which this country was built. Let this be a wake-up call, not just for those who care about Brexit, not just for veterans or patriots, but for anyone who believes that the British people, and only the British people, should control the fate of this nation. The future is still ours to shape, but only if we take it back. That's where Miliband is losing the battle, not because he lacks facts or vision, but because he's speaking a language that increasing numbers of people no longer relate to. He talks in long-term projections, global commitments and emissions. Data. Reform talks about heating bills, lost jobs, and government overreach. One speaks policy. The other speaks pain, and that's why Miliband's plea to reform feels so ineffectual. Telling Farage and Tice to reconsider their net zero position isn't just futile, it's strategically tone-deaf. It ignores the fact that their opposition is not policy-driven. It's politically and culturally deliberate. For reform, rejecting net zero is a way to draw a line between them and a political establishment they claim has ignored ordinary people for too long. Backtracking now would destroy the very brand they've built. This dynamic puts Miliband and Labour in a bind. Doubling down on net zero risks alienating working-class voters who see it as a financial threat. Backing off would risk revolt among younger, progressive voters who view climate policy as non-negotiable. The party can't afford to alienate either group, but it hasn't yet found a way to satisfy both. So far, Miliband's strategy has been to insist that the green transition will create jobs, boost the economy, and reduce long-term costs. And, in fairness, there's some truth to that. But these benefits are often abstract and long-term. What many voters want are concrete answers about the here and now: how to pay their bills, how to heat their homes, how to keep their car on the road without bankrupting themselves, until Labour can explain how net zero will work for them, not just in principle, but in practice. It will struggle to win this debate. Meanwhile, Reform's messaging machine is growing more confident. They know they're striking a nerve, and they're emboldened by international trends, from the backlash to Les in London, to protests in Europe against green mandates, to the election of populist, climate-skeptical leaders abroad. All of it feeds their claim that net zero is a globalist con designed to punish the many for the sins of the few. Miliband might call that reckless, but it's effective, and so, while he tries to shame reform into changing their minds, they are busy convincing voters to change theirs. It's a high-stakes gamble that could reshape the UK's energy policy for a generation. If Miliband wants to turn the tide, he'll need to move beyond lectures and condemnation. He'll need to present a climate policy that isn't just idealistic, but realistic, one that doesn't feel like a moral crusade, but a practical roadmap. That means being honest about costs, flexible on methods, and deeply engaged with the people who've felt left behind. Because the truth is, if net zero fails, it won't be because climate change isn't real. It will be because political leaders failed to bring the public with them. And right now, Ed Miliband is in danger of becoming the face of that failure, while Reform is fast becoming the voice of those who feel left out of the conversation entirely. This growing divide isn't just about climate policy. It's a test of whether Britain's political class still knows how to listen. Ed Miliband, once seen as a visionary on green policy, now faces accusations of being out of touch. Critics say he's clinging to a net zero narrative that might resonate inside think tanks and university panels, but not in the kitchens and factories where people are worried about the next heating bill, not melting ice caps in 2100. That's not to say people don't care about the environment.